What is a commitment that you made to yourself maybe this last week or anything you could think of that you broke? I don't know if you realize this, but when you make a commitment to something and you don't keep it, you're actually breaking down your energy. It starts to take us into a place where we're not honoring ourselves. And the more we do it, the less commitment becomes valuable. It's no longer valuable to us. In other words, like, okay, yeah, I said I would do this, but then I didn't do it. It's no big deal. But it is a big deal because then there are times where we make really big commitments. And when we break that really big commitment, that creates a lot of energy, a lot of chaos sometimes. When we start making what I call positive commitments and becoming aware if we're not following through on that, then we start to feel more confident. We start to feel more worthy. We start to feel more self-assured. And that's where it can make a difference in your life. So here's a couple of just examples that indicate when you have your own personal lapse in commitment. Welcome to Soul Sunday. And this is I like to call this not just like a service or a sermon. I like to call this this is a gathering of like community. And we're gathering here on Sunday mornings to talk about what I like to call how to apply spiritual laws to everyday life. Because right now we've got a lot of things going on in our world. We have had a lot going on in the last, I guess almost the last 4 years, but I call this like a transition. It's a transition from being kind of what I call in the fourth dimension of energy, which is a lot of focusing on our ego. It's focusing on material things, which having material things is not negative. It's just that when we focus so much on that and we don't focus on ourselves and what's going on in the world, then it becomes a distraction. But this morning, I wanted to talk about commitment. And a lot of people think of commitment think about how you think of commitment. Like you think, okay, commitment, what does that mean? Well, when people get married, they make a commitment. When people take a job, they make a commitment to that job. So today we want to kind of go into this, what I call the journey of commitment. And it's not just the big promises that we make to other people, and it's really about also the promises we make to ourselves. I don't know if you realize this, but when you make a commitment to something and you don't keep it, you're actually breaking down your energy. You're actually breaking down your personal vibration. And the importance of honoring commitments runs really deep within us. And what happens is when you say, yes, I'm going to do something, that's about aligning with your true self. If someone says in marriage, I'm going to be with you forever or for the rest of our lives, that's honoring a commitment that you made. And you've actually put what I call an energy of commitment within your body. So let's go back and just look at a couple of things with ourselves. It is my belief that we are energetic beings. We're all about energy. And it's about what kind of energy we have within us, outside of us, and what kind of energy we give to others. And so as an energetic person, there are actions and behaviors that can sort of make ourselves better, greater, more energetic, or can pull us down. And so that's what happens when we make commitments and then we break them, is we're actually breaking down our energy. And also sticking to your commitments is also about feeling worthy, feeling confident, connecting with others that feel the same, that feel worthy, that feel confident. And then, when we break those commitments to ourselves, we chip away our confidence. So think about I want you to think about just for a minute, what is a commitment that you made to yourself maybe this last week or anything you could think of that you broke? It could be as simple as I'm going to bed tonight at 9 o'clock. And then at 9:30, you're still watching TV or you're still doing some work in the house or you're doing something, but you did not honor your commitment to yourself. I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock. What if you said, I'm going to brush my teeth every night, and then you don't brush your teeth? Now, I know that might be simple and silly and small, but whether you realize it or not, you're constantly breaking a commitment to yourself, and it breaks down your energy of committing and connecting with others. So it's really important to understand the value of commitment in everyday world, everyday living, everything you do every day. So first, let's talk about what is true commitment. What does it look like? So I want to understand it or help you understand it in more of a spiritual sense. People say things all the time. Yeah, I'll meet you for lunch, or yeah, I'll catch up with you at a friend's house, but then you never see them or they don't show up. It's sort of a passing commitment. Oh yeah, I'll see you over there. I'll be there about 7. And then maybe they don't show up. And they made a commitment themselves, but then they broke it. And sometimes, how does that feel? Well, you may not care, but I know that in my life, I've had several friends that I really thought were my true friends. And we would make plans maybe for lunch or for dinner. And then perhaps an hour or two before, I'd get a call. Oh, I can't make it tonight. Or can we reschedule? Can we do this? And after a while, after that happens for a while, I start to realize maybe I can't rely on this person. Maybe I really can't rely on them because they're not really being truthful with me. So what commitment is, it's not just a fleeting promise. It's not a temporary goal. It's a bond that's rooted in love, respect, and faithfulness to yourself and to the universe. And it really is something much deeper than just a few words that you say. So when you commit, you're pledging to uphold something that resonates with your soul and with your higher purpose. So if we look at this in a spiritual sense, commitment is this energetic alignment that I've been talking about. And when we say yes to something and follow through, we are telling the universe that we're ready to hold that energy within us. So you're not only speaking to yourself, you're speaking to the universe all around you. And you're putting an energy out there in the entire universe. So what happens is if you fail to honor your commitment, you're sending mixed messages. So you're not just sending a mixed message to the person that you made the commitment to. You're sending mixed messages out into the universe. And what that does is that starts to disrupt your harmony and your sense of purpose. So let's look at another way, like how the impact of breaking a commitment, what happens when we break it to ourselves. So we often talk about, like I said, the importance, I just talked earlier about the importance, don't break commitments to yourselves. I realize I break commitments to myself all the time. And I started, when I started really digging in to this action of commitment, I really didn't realize how important it is just to me. And I found that when I would do things just like, I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock tonight, or I'm going to be at work early this morning, or I'll be there to open up the shop for the employees. And if I come late or if I'm not there, then I've put an energy out in not only to myself, but to others. And so it's, like I said, it's really, it starts to take us into a place where we're not honoring ourselves. And the more we do it, the less commitment becomes valuable. It's no longer valuable to us. In other words, like, okay, yeah, I said I would do this, but then I didn't do it. It's no big deal. But it is a big deal because then there are times where we make really big commitments. And when we break that really big commitment, that creates a lot of energy, a lot of chaos sometimes. Now, when you break a commitment, it doesn't mean that you can't recommit because you can. But what you want to do is recognize that. And what I know, like how we function right now in the world, is that if we can just become aware of what we're doing, now we're taking the steps to start to work on that. You know, I see a world right now where a lot of people aren't even aware of what they're doing. They're not aware of what they're saying. I see people on social media that, somebody makes a comment and then the next person makes a negative comment and then the next person. And honestly, sometimes I don't think people that are being very negative are really taking the time to be aware of what they're doing. We have to be aware of what we're doing. I would love it if everybody in the world would make a commitment to only make positive comments. If we could get people to make just positive comments on social media, do you realize that overnight that could change the world? That could literally change the world. Because what is it doing? It's putting out good messages out into the world. It's putting out good information to the divine. And I believe people would start feeling that. And when we start making what I call positive commitments and becoming aware if we're not following through on that, then we start to feel more confident. We start to feel more worthy. We start to feel more self-assured. And that's where it can make a difference in your life first, because you don't really want to keep breaking commitments to yourself. And if you continue that, it starts to do other things. And it even gets into, and I'm going to talk a little bit about boundaries, because it actually starts to fall into whether you set boundaries or not, and whether or not you let people, actually, we call them energy vampires, start to suck your energy, because you're opening yourself up for that to happen. So think about the next time that you make a little commitment to yourself, whatever that is. And I know that we're human, and I know that we have a lot going on in our life. And for those of you that are here this morning, you made a commitment to be here at a certain time, and you came at a certain time, and that, again, that you followed through, and that's good energy. And as you go through the day, you're like, oh, I honored that commitment. I said I would be here at a certain time, and I was here at a certain time. And then again, ask yourself throughout the day, where am I honoring all commitments, or where am I not honoring commitments to myself? How can I become aware of that? So let's talk about what are the lapses in commitment. So first, as I said, become aware. We don't always realize when I would like to say we have a lapse in commitment. So by tapping into that awareness of what we're doing, is really going to give you a time to just reflect. Why did I not live up to that commitment that I said that I would do? What is it that kept me from doing that? What is it that, really made me not want to move forward? And you have to ask yourself that, because there's something going on that's causing you not to do that. Now, it could be that you're just tired. You came home, you said, I'm going to come home tonight, and I'm going to work on this project that I've been working on, and because I want to get it done. But then when you get home, you're like, I'm tired. I really had a long day. And you can recommit to yourself. You can say, I know I was going to do this tonight, but I want to be aware that I didn't do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to Saturday. So I'll move this to a day when I'm not working, and I have more energy, and I have more confidence, and I'm happy that I'll probably get it done. And then you can recommit to yourself. And so, when you start recognizing those kind of patterns is when you're going to start what I call to really building your spiritual connection to the universe and your spiritual connection to others. So here's a couple of just examples that indicate when you have your own personal lapse in commitment. One of them is that you make repeated excuses. So, I have a business where I have employees, and I've had employees in the past. It's one thing to be late one time, but when you're late about every 4 to 5 days and there's a different excuse, I got behind a school bus. I just couldn't get here on time, or, oh my gosh, I had a problem. My water was overflowing in my sink and I just couldn't leave on time. Or, gee, my alarm clock didn't go off. And you start seeing that there's all these excuses for this commitment to be at work on time. And I think you all know, and I certainly know, there's something else going on. And there's something going on with that person that is causing them not to be committed to their job. Because unfortunately, I've had to let some employees go because time and time again, I would say, look, if you're late one more time, that's just something that I can't allow. Because what happens is, it's not just what that person is doing to themselves and to the business, it's what they're doing around their coworkers, because their coworkers are watching and the coworkers are going, well, she's always late and there's no recourse on this, so maybe I'll be late. So that person's lack of commitment to being at work on time could be affecting everybody else in the business and could be causing them to lose their energy of commitment. And that's why it's important. And that's why that goes back also to setting boundaries, because I have to set the boundaries on those individuals, and then they have to stick to those boundaries. And the way you stick to your boundaries is committing to stick to your boundaries. The other way that a lot of people just don't stick to their commitments is that they're feeling resentment or frustration toward themselves or toward others. So if you're angry at somebody and you're not angry enough that you're not going to be around them, but you're angry, you're like, well, if they did this, then I'm going to go do this. And how often have you heard, and I mean, I've heard this a lot, in a marriage, one person, has an affair and the other person goes, well, heck, if they're going to have it, I'm going to go have one. Well, now they've broken their commitment because the other person broke their commitment, and now this person broke their commitment. So it is an energy that grows, and that's why we really ought to think about when we break our commitments. The other way is that a person will make an excuse and say, oh, I'm very scattered. A lot of spiritual people, like, I'm just not grounded. I can't stay grounded. I'm very scattered. So they're basically saying because they're ungrounded and because they're kind of scattered and they're not able to ground their energy, that you are supposed to accept that. And I don't accept that. It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm having a bad day, or I'm just not grounded today. That does happen to us every now and then. But when a person uses that as an excuse for everything they do, then there's a problem. Because I don't accept excuses from people every time when they say, well, I'm just a scattered person, and that's just who I am. Well, so you're saying that because of who you are and you're unwilling to learn ways to ground yourself or to be more observant or to be more aware, that I'm supposed to give you a pass every time. Can't do that, because if I give someone a pass who makes excuses all the time, then guess what? I'm breaking my boundaries and I'm allowing them to move into my boundaries. So it is important not to accept certain excuses from people, and we do it all the time. We do it all the time. I know I've had relatives that would say, that's just the way I am. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be the way you are. It could be different if you wanted to be aware of what you're doing. And then the last piece sometimes that may cause you to break your boundaries is that you do have low self-esteem. You have low self-esteem, or you've got what I call self-doubt, or maybe you've set goals, because when you make a commitment, you're setting a goal, and then you think, I'll never reach that goal. I'll never be able to do that. And then it starts this cycle of breaking your commitment. I have a goal. I want to take my business to a certain level, and I must be committed to take the steps and to do the work to grow the business to a certain level. But if I start saying, "Oh, these aren't working," and it just isn't happening for me, I'm just going to give up, then guess what? When you give up, nothing happens. We say sometimes you do things, or you take a risk, or you step out, and good things happen. And then sometimes you do that and bad things happen. But the reality is that if you don't take the first step in your commitment, nothing happens. So it is important to understand that you have to look behind what's causing this lapse in your commitment. So what happens when you break commitment? So how do you apologize? Or do you apologize? Or what do you do? Let's say that you made a commitment to be there for someone in something that they're going through, and you just decided, "Oh, I just can't do it," or "I can't go," or "I can't be there for this person," or "I can't show up for their concert," or they're getting their degree today, they're graduating, and I said I would be there to support them. And then I just decided, oh, there's just a big crowd of people, and I really don't want to be in a crowd, and it's such a long way. I don't want to drive all that distance. And then you just don't go. And then that person is really disappointed because they expected you there. It meant a lot to them. And so how do you apologize? So, it is important to apologize to others, but it's also important to realize what was going on with you. And I call it, we use a term sometimes called breakdown. So you're kind of in breakdown, and you have to recommit. You have to first apologize. I didn't make it to your graduation because I was really just not feeling good about myself. And I wasn't feeling good about myself because I didn't graduate. I didn't have the education that you had, and it made me feel bad. And then I started feeling as though I'm not important and I'm not worthy. And here you are getting this degree, and I just thought, well, I just can't go. And that does happen. That's where we start tapping into our self-worth. We start realizing I don't feel worthy because this person is doing something, but there's something deeper going on at that point. And then the other thing to remember, and this is what happens with some apologies, is don't go to shame. We as a country, we as people, as human beings, we carry a lot of shame in our life. And a lot of that shame comes from, a lot of times, from our early childhood, of people shaming us. Our parents saying, "Oh, shame on you for doing that." And as opposed to having a positive conversation about something that maybe you did, but we go to shame when we apologize, like, "I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I should never have done this." And you take on this energy of shame. You can't do that, because when you take on that energy of shame, sometimes the apology may or may not feel authentic. And you want apologies to people to feel truly authentic. And I remember one time when I had to apologize to someone, and I really didn't feel like apologizing. I didn't feel like that I really had done anything wrong. But this person had the perception that I had. And so I realized that it was important for me to apologize to them for this, and I broke a commitment, and I had to admit that. But I realized that I really needed to make that apology very heartfelt. It needed to come from a deep place. And so I looked them right in the eye, and I said, "I am truly sorry, truly sorry. If I didn't do something, or I broke a commitment to you that you were truly expecting or banking on. And I, from the depth of my heart, apologize." And then the next step is that, will you forgive me? Because if that person says yes, now they have to make a commitment that they have truly forgiven us, and it starts to go both ways. But when you authentically share that that you're apologizing and that you truly are sorry and sad for what happened, then they feel it. And then they can feel that forgiveness. And then again, that brings a good energy. And also, too, you don't want to judge yourself. You don't want to now say, oh my gosh, I broke this. I'm a terrible person. I just didn't do that. I made them feel really bad. And now I'm a terrible person. No, you're not. You're human. You're human, and you're working hard on being a spiritual being. And you're working hard on putting good energy out into the world. And then also, it is important to know that when we recommit or when we apologize, is that we want people to know that we do value them. And I do not think we say that often enough, is that I value you or I appreciate you. I really, truly appreciate you. I appreciate you for being here today. I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate. I could be going to a place of oh, wow, there's not 100 people here. And, that makes me feel bad. And I made this commitment to be here today and so forth. But that's going to not feeling worthy. I mean, I feel very worthy. I feel very enlightened, thrilled, excited to be able to share my message. And, for me, it doesn't matter whether it's one person or 100 people. You never know what one word, one sentence, one something could do to make a difference in their life. And that's why I've committed to doing this program, because I want to be able to put energy out into the world that helps it be a much better place. So let's look at some ways that you could strengthen your commitment, not only to yourself, but to others. So first, I want you to start small. When you leave here today, I want you to think about, what is something that I keep telling myself that I'm going to commit to, but I don't do it. I want you to try to find something. I mean, I'm sure there's something. Or even if it's something that you've done, you've noticed a couple of times you've done this and then you've shifted things around. So I want you to find one thing, one little thing. Even like I said, brushing your teeth. I made a commitment, and I made a commitment to my dentist because the last time I was doing my checkup, my dentist goes, you need to floss every single day. And I said, okay, I promise I will floss every day. And I've worked very hard on flossing every day because I do have some trouble areas, and flossing clears that up. So when I walked out of that office, I said to myself, Sharron, you are going to do this and you're going to live up to this. And I have. And you know what? I feel really good. Just that simple little step. I mean, there are nights when I'm getting ready to go to sleep and I'm like, oh, I don't want to floss. I don't want to floss. But I do. I make myself go in the bathroom and do it. And I realize that when I get into bed, I feel so good because I lived up to this little commitment that I made to my dentist. And, my dentist probably doesn't care whether I do or not once I leave the office. But that person did say that to me. I just want you to commit that you will do this. You will find that you are much healthier. And I do believe that it has created some better health for me. So you definitely want to become aware. What are some little things that you're ignoring or not sticking to that you could shift? Or guess what? Let it go. Just let it go. I could say, forget it. I'm just not going to floss every night. But then I will have to live the consequences of that. But it's okay to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. Secondly, I want you to reflect on what's your intention around that. What is your intention? Why am I making this commitment? Why am I agreeing to do this? A lot of this goes back to we want to feel good about ourselves. So a lot of times we make commitments that we know we can't keep. But in that moment, you're getting what I call, it's like a power hit. You're feeling good about yourself. Yes, I'm going to go commit. I'm going to go volunteer at the community the community center, and I'm going to work and help elderly individuals. I want to go volunteer. Yes, I'll do that. Somebody called me. Will you be willing to do that? Yes, oh, I'd love to do that. And then when the time comes to go do that, it's like, oh, I really don't have the time. But what happened is you gave yourself a power hit. You made yourself feel good because you were saying yes to someone. And believe it or not, that's an energy that we create for ourselves all the time. We tell people, especially when it comes to volunteer work, we tell people, yes, I'd like to do that. And then sometimes we talk ourselves out of it because we go, well, I'm not getting paid. And I really think I should get paid for this work. So again, you have to look at your intentions. What are your intentions around agreeing to commit to something? And then also, you want to practice self-compassion. And self-compassion is really critical in your life, because if you do fall short on not being compassionate with yourself, you just can't dwell on it. You can't, again, go to shame. You can't beat yourself up. Because really and truly, working on yourself is about progress. It's really about learning how to move forward and not put yourself in these situations. And it's, also committing is also not about perfection. Because a lot of times we commit because we want people to think that everything is perfect, that we are perfect, that we're doing something perfectly. And we agree to commit when we realize later, oh, wow, I'm not perfect and I can't do this perfectly. So again, you kind of have to give yourself a break around that. And then another way is to reaffirm regularly. And that's, like I said, checking in on a weekly basis. What commitments did you make this week? What did you agree to? And, even as far as sometimes doing a piece of paper, listing out what I committed to, what I actually did. Make a list. What am I committing to this week? Almost like a to-do list. And then did I do it or not? And if I didn't, how can I resolve this within myself in a positive way so that I do not do this again? Or I don't overload myself with things. And sometimes that's why we break commitments, because we overload ourselves. And then also, it's about once you start to recognize and become aware why you're not sticking to commitments, now you've got to set boundaries. And setting boundaries is one of the most challenging behaviors in a lot of people's lives, is they don't set boundaries. And when they don't set boundaries, and we've all been there, is we then allow others to step into our boundaries, and then that starts to create what I call this breakdown of energy. And that is, setting boundaries is a significant part of honoring your commitments. Because if you set the boundary, I said I'm going to do this and I'll do this every week, well, you're setting a boundary around that. And if let's say you agree, I agree to volunteer every Saturday at the dog shelter. I'm going to do that every Saturday, and you're doing it and you love it, and it's great. And then someone at the shelter goes, "Oh, could you come on Sundays too?" And you're like, "Yeah, I love this. I'd be happy to do it." And then you realize over time, wow, I don't have a weekend anymore. I don't have any other time for myself. But you allowed that person to talk you into or convince you that you being there both days in the weekend was really going to help them out. And yes, you probably are, but also you have boundaries too. And you have to be able to step back and say, I'd really love to do that, but I have other commitments on Sundays. And, you want to get to the point to where you don't say yes to everything. And a lot of people do that. And I see a lot of people that break their commitments are people that are saying yes a lot. And I have this little motto that in fact, I even thought about one day. I thought, oh, maybe I'll just write a little story about this or something. But I call it say yes to saying no. And that you say no, and also no is a complete sentence. You don't have to give an explanation. You don't have to say, well, I can't do this because I have to do this, or gee, I hope you understand. It's like, just say, no, I can't. And most people accept that. Most people will accept that. It's just that you don't realize that, and you just keep talking, trying to explain why you said no. And that really is one of the beginnings of breaking your commitments, is not being able to say no. And you have to be able to do that from time to time, especially if you overcommit yourself. So saying no when it's appropriate is really a form of commitment to yourself, because now you're committing to you. And now you're saying, I'm not going to overload myself with too many things, because if I do, then I find that I'm breaking my commitments. And I know I've been in times in my life where I had so much going on. I had a lot going on. I had this business going on. I had things going. I had situations with my family that I was taking care of, and I was working, doing other things, online programs and things like that. And I really just didn't have a lot of time for me. And I found myself starting to not stick to my commitments around a lot of these things, or making a commitment. And let's say, oh, I'll be at work. I'm going to come in on Monday and I'll be here all day. And then I don't come in until midday, and I haven't let anyone know that I wasn't going to be in. Even though I didn't necessarily have to let them know, but again, it was out of respect. I should have. And I realized after that, for a while, it's like, wow, I have too much going on. I need to be able to let go of some of these things and make sure that if I make a commitment in what I'm going to do, that I am doing it. And it changes your life when you do that. It will really change your life a lot. And it can also help you stay on what I call that spiritual path. I do believe that one of the laws of the universe is learning to stick to your commitments, because it's like a ripple effect. It'll affect you in all areas of your life, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. And, I've just seen too many people move back in their life or forward in their life based on what they committed to, and based on what they're telling themselves about breaking their commitments. And when a good way to think about this is when you say, oh, I'm going to do this, and then you don't do it, become aware that you didn't do it, and then say to yourself, wow, I think I'm in some kind of breakdown. But what is that breakdown? What's going on with me? Maybe you were having a bad day. Maybe someone made you angry the day before, and you're still carrying that anger, and it's flowed into you, starting to feel unworthy. Or you're like, well, I don't even know where this is coming from, but it's coming from somewhere. I guarantee you of that. So think about that this week. I think it would be fun to find a little something that you know that you could commit to and stick to it every day. It is sort of like having a belief system. And when we stick to our belief systems, or we have what I call we have our point of view around our life, then when you're sticking to that and committing to that, you feel stronger. Your life feels better. And actually, good things can happen. It could be a key to manifesting. It could be a key to attracting more positive people in your life. It could also be a key to recognizing when people are not living up to their commitments to you. I know that I talked earlier about a friend that I had, and she always committed, like, even in my business, if I have a grand opening or I have something special, or, there were birthday parties, there were different things that, I always invited her to, and because we worked together for many years, and we were good friends. We even traveled together on some journeys. But yet once I left that business, and then I was doing my own thing, and I expected that we were still good friends, we would still do things together, and that she would share in my celebrations of different things in my life. And she just would always say yes, but then never show up, and always say yes and never show up. And then I realized she's breaking these commitments to me. What is that about? And then I had to ask myself, maybe she doesn't really want to be my friend anymore. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Because I will find new friends. And maybe by me always wondering and worrying or thinking, is it something going on with me? That was breaking down my energy. That was causing me to focus on someone else's lack of commitment. And she wasn't even doing anything, and it was affecting me. So I realized it's okay. I'm going to let that friend go. I'm not going to invite them anymore because they keep breaking their commitments. One, I don't want to put them in that position. And two, I want to move on. And I want to be around people that do care about me. I want to be around people that would say no to me. Like, gee, I'd love to come to your birthday party, but I just can't come. I'd be okay with that. But if you say yes and you don't come, then it's like, oh, that hurts. So as long as we set a boundary that we don't allow others to break, in other words, that we, after time, we realize we're not going to allow them to break their commitments to us because it affects us, we can move on. And then we can start to look at ourselves and we can start to really say, all right, where am I breaking a commitment to myself today? I mean, think about how many people have said, I'm going to start that diet tomorrow. And then maybe a few days they step into it and then they step out of it. And again, that's human nature. We all do that. But if we become aware of what we're doing, it can change our life. It can literally change our life. So I want you to just take this message today of commitment and just ask yourself, wow, where could I practice some of this? Or how could this impact me? How could it help me? And, and if you break a little commitment to someone, make amends. Like I said, practice. It could just be a little something like with a family member or a friend, a little something maybe that you did, and you could say, oh, I'm going to start small, but I said I was going to do this and I didn't, and I apologize. I apologize. I said I'd be at lunch right at 12 noon, and I got here at 12:15. Let me apologize right now, and apologize in a way where you're being sincere. Not that, I'm so sorry I was late, traffic was so bad. No, it wasn't that traffic was so bad, it was that you didn't leave on time. That's what it's about. And you didn't care enough about that person to leave on time, to be there on time. And that is something that goes very deep. And if you find yourself doing even little simple things like that, just not showing up to lunch on time or to dinner on time, you should look at that because that's where you could start. That's an easy place. So in closing, around the value of commitment, I hope that today you can all walk forward, you can all become aware of what you're doing, and that you can tap into your own spiritual self, and that you can really, what I call, walk this path of your soul's commitment to not only yourself, but to everybody else out there in the world.